Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Before I get into today's story, an admission. When I was a kid growing up, I would read every Civil War book I could get my hands on and study the character of the men and officers. The deeds that they did, the gallantry and courage that they showed never ceased to amaze me. And I modeled my behavior on their actions. I still do it today. And that takes me to the story of the officer pictured here, George Bowen Herenden. He was a lawyer just starting out when the Civil War began up in New York State, where he was born and raised. In May of 1861, he joined the 10th New York State Militia, guarding the barracks at Albany, the state capital, for a few months. And then he joined the 44th New York Infantry, which was formed as the People's Ellsworth Regiment. He started out as a private, quickly worked his way up to sergeant major, and then a lieutenant and adjutant. He proved his mettle in combat, a Peninsula campaign, and at Gettysburg, where he was wounded. He also proved an administrative leader and proved his character in so many ways. And that's what takes us to the story here. I want to take you to November 7th, 1863. Rappahannock River. The Union Army forces a passage across two spots: Rappahannock Station, which is a railroad depot, tiny town with a bridge, and then nearby Kelley's Ford. The 5th and 6th Corps of the Union Army are involved in this. The 44th, the regimental history, records their part in the action and an incident that reveals the character of Herenden. So let me get into the story. I'm going to take it to the beginning of the action. Quote, everything being in readiness, the advance began about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The line of Confederate skirmishers was posted about 3/4 of a mile in front of their fortifications. As soon as our skirmishers came in range, they engaged the Confederate skirmishers and steadily drove them back to their fortifications. The line of battle of the 5th Corps was halted on reaching the road leading to Kelley's Ford. The line of the 6th Corps advanced in splendid order and gallantly charged and carried the enemy's works to the right of the railroad. Our skirmish line charged at the same time with the 6th Corps, and some of our troops were among the first to scale the enemy's works. When the enemy broke, they started to retreat across the bridge in rear of their works, but the raking fire of our troops soon caused them to abandon that line of escape. Some jumped into the river and endeavored to escape in that way, but they too were forced to return and surrender. The victory was complete. Over 1,300 prisoners and 8 pieces of artillery were taken. Some of the Confederate officers who were compelled to surrender after jumping into the river were detained as prisoners during the night at brigade headquarters. Orders were received that no fires were to be built as they furnished targets for the enemy. Remember, there's a Confederate army still out there. The night was cool, and the prisoners who had been in the river entered some complaint because no fires were allowed by which they could dry their clothes. Blankets were procured for them, and they were made as comfortable as possible. An incident here occurred that should not be overlooked. This is where Lieutenant Herenden comes into play. Soon after the entry of our troops into the fort, Lieutenant Herenden discovered a number of Confederates, unguarded and uncared for, lurking in the darkness. Taking in the situation, that resourceful officer commanded in a loud voice, "Fall in for coffee." He was surprised to find that his command or invitation at once placed 5 officers and 55 men under his immediate and sole charge. These he conducted to regimental headquarters, where, with the aid of other members of the regiment, they were banqueted on pork, hardtack, and coffee, after which they were taken to Corps headquarters, where they were assembled with several hundred of their misguided associates. So there you have it. the story of George Herenden, an incident at Rappahannock Station, Rappahannock River, helping these 60 Confederate prisoners who were cold and hungry by giving them some warm coffee and some food. So there you have it, a study in character and a story of a less remembered battle of the Civil War. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.